Happy Juneteenth, everybody.
Happy Juneteenth.
Sounding good. Can y'all hear me? Thumbs up. Y'all can hear me? All right, so happy Juneteenth, everybody. We're going to kick it off with a little reading from this book called On Juneteenth. It is by Annette Gordon Reed. It was published this year. The people of Texas are informed that in accordance with a proclamation from the executive of the United States, all slaves are free. This involves an absolute equality of personal rights and rights of property between former masters and slaves, and the connection heretofore existing between them becomes that between employer and hired labor. The freedmen are advised to remain at their present homes and work for wages. They are informed that they will not be allowed to collect at military posts and that they will not be supported in idleness either there or elsewhere. This order was based on the Emancipation Proclamation that President Abraham Lincoln, who had been assassinated the previous April, had issued on New Year's Day, 1863. The 13th Amendment, still in the process of being ratified, provided no basis for it. Some African Americans in Galveston and likely other residents already knew the gist of the general order prior to June 19th. Galveston, the largest city in Texas, was a port through which most of the cotton picked and processed in the state was shipped out to the world. Port cities are perfect vehicles for transmission of information to people of all degrees of literacy. 2 days before General Granger arrived on the island, Black men working on the wharves began to shout in exultation. When asked what they were celebrating, they replied, because they were free. The news spread to the other towns, but the former slaves had to be very wary of open celebration. While the holiday Juneteenth has grown to be an integral part of life in Texas, celebrated now by Blacks and whites, and appears on its way to becoming a national holiday. That's page 124 to 125 on Juneteenth. Please pick it up if you'd like to learn a little bit more. I'm so glad that you all are here. We are few, but we are spreading as wide and as full as we can to spread the word in Humboldt County. Speaking of Humboldt County, I also want to acknowledge that our Board of Supervisors here in Humboldt County also has adopted this proclamation. And here's a short, a brief statement from the email that was sent out to Humboldt County offices. Yesterday was our first federal Juneteenth, and here's a small note from Humboldt County. Dear county employees, offices at the county will be closed June 18th in observance of Juneteenth National Independence Day. That day, President Joe Biden signed S-475, the Juneteenth National Independence Day Act, declaring it a federal holiday, consistent with the proclamation adopted by the Board of Supervisors in Humboldt County on June 15th. The county will observe June 18th as a holiday and will be designated as such for county employees. The board recognized, June 19th, known as Juneteenth, holds a special meeting for the African American community. It represents the abolishment of slavery and the emancipation signed by President Abraham Lincoln. The Board of Supervisors on June 15th adopted a proclamation declaring June 19th as Juneteenth Day in Humboldt County to bring awareness and to celebrate this historical day of freedom. Juneteenth is the oldest known celebration commemorating the ending of slavery in the United States, celebrating that day in history, June 19th, 1865. All right, thank you so much for joining us today. We have a day full of events. And before we share this day full of events with you, we like to begin with a land acknowledgement.
Thank you, Gianna. Did I echo? No, okay. So we want to urge everyone that's joining us today to acknowledge that the land you're operating on is Native ancestral homeland. If you are in Humboldt County, that might include the Hoopa, the Karuk, the Matole, the Tolowa, the Wailaki, the Wiyot, or the Yurok tribes. And we make this land acknowledgement in recognition that our words must be matched by action and approach to, honor these ancestral homelands in this unceded territory. And we encourage direct giving to tribes and Native-led efforts. I'm gonna drop an honor text for the Wiyot tribe and a link that can help you find what native land you're on in the chat, because no matter where you're joining us from, you are most likely on ancestral native land. And with that being said, do you want me to just do the next one too, Dee?
I got you.
All right.
We like to acknowledge the tremendous suffering that the enslavement of Africans during the Atlantic slave trade caused. We recognize and acknowledge the labor upon which our country, state, and institutions are built. Remember that our country is built on the labor of enslaved people who were kidnapped and brought to the US from the African continent, exploited, and recognize the continued contribution of their survivors, like me, like you. While slavery has legally ended, the effects of institutional racism continue to this day. We acknowledge all immigrant labor, including voluntary, involuntary, and trafficked peoples who continue to serve within our labor force. And with that said, we like to do an African practice and tradition that, if you're familiar with it, we did it last year. But basically, we're just gonna bless the earth with some water, and feel free to unmute yourself and say a name of any ancestors that have passed on, whether they're in proximity to you or not, by blood or not. If you recognize and respect them in spirit, you can unmute yourself, say their name, and you'll hear me say Ashe. We can all say Ashe together. Ashe means let it be true. And I'll start, and I'll make sure that Mo, if you could just make sure everybody is unmuted for me, please. We're able to unmute. James Fletcher. Ashe.
Ashe. Naomi Price Harris. Ashe.
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 Deborah Dillon Bryant.
Ashe.
Ashe.
Helen
Darden Lyles. Ashe.
Ashe.
Helen Stewart Thompson.
Ashe.
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 Shirley Hobbs.
Ashe.
Ashe.
Julius Wilton Bryant.
Ashe.
Ashe.
James Harris.
Ashe.
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 Samuel Boney.
Ashe.
Ashe.
Freddie Gray. Ashe.
Ashe.
Josiah Lawson.
Ashe.
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 Lucas Dale Blake Williams.
Ashe.
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 Breonna Taylor. Ashe.
Ashe.
Minnie Fletcher. Ashe.
Ashe.
Thank you all for practicing honoring our ancestors and the deceased with us. Tina.
So now I will begin singing the Black National Anthem. Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of a new day begun, let us march on till victory is won. Stony the road we trod, bitter the chastening rod, felt in the days when hope unborn had died. Yet with a steady beat, have not our weary feet come to the place where which our fathers sighed. We have come over a way with the tears has been watered. We have come treading our path through the blood of the slaughtered. Out from the gloomy past, till now we stand at last, where the white gleam of our bright star is cast. God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, thou who hast brought us thus far on the way, thou who hast by thy might led us into the light. Keep us forever in the path we pray. Lest our feet stray from the places, our God, where we met thee. Lest our hearts, drunk with the wine of the world, we forget thee. Shadowed beneath thy hand, may we forever stand, true to our God, true to our native land.
Okay. Up next, we're gonna share a Juneteenth poem by Raw Holistic Hip Hop. So I'm gonna share my screen so we can watch that video.
Riley, and this is my Juneteenth poem. Black self-love is groundbreaking, like shifting tectonics, the shake will revert for generations, uplifting and honor the ancestors that couldn't speak because their lips had forgotten the tongue of their mothers while the wits broke the skin of their fathers. There's a spirit not dimmed by the bondage that, when it's acknowledged, will persist through the thickest of blockage like it was just water. I've seen some of the richest hearts still existing in squalor, but it's required that we get what it's meant to be ours We might not be permitted by the twisted system and power, but it has no solid foundation. It'll tip in the hour. Now, take a whiff of the flowers. They've been through the showers. That's why they sweet. We digged in the ground, cause our destiny is to sprout and to feed on the sun to reflect the beauty of the dark before there shall be light was even spoken. Realize your depth is deep as the ocean. Realize the breath you breathe to the flesh beneath your ribs can summon words to move mountains. There's a heat that is molten, flowing through your veins with pure wisdom, great people unfolded. I think we have the right to know we were kings and queens way before this. We soon to recover the things that were stolen, I know it. Go from used to be owned to owning homes in fertile lands where we can raise children out of a broken system.
So before we continue to move forward with this program, we just want to give you a big thank you. So donors, we want to take this time to say a huge thank you to everyone within our community that either directed donations to us, advised folks to donate to us, used their platform to spread awareness, or has given us in-kind donations. This financial support will further our access and abilities to create and sustain safe spaces for Black and Brown communities immediately, and further our reach to also support a large diversity of Indigenous and POC identities. We will continue to offer the events, spaces, and educational opportunities we already offer, and we will work to expand those efforts to further support our Black and Brown communities in all of Humboldt. So thank you, and thank you. But we want to give a big shout out to our collaborators. So the Eureka chapter of the NAACP, our Black coordinators, the local Black and Brown workshop facilitators, and our Black Knowledge for Power facilitators. Everyone else locally who has donated space or items to our cause, thank you.
Can we also just say thanks? We have a physical sponsor through the Ink People. So a lot of the stuff we're able to pull off and a lot of the resources we're able to pull for our community come through that sponsorship. So woo woo to the Ink People.
Can I just do a thank you to all these folks that you see on the screen with me? Every single person that's here making all of this happen, thank you all, because you all changed my life and helped me change all these lives. So thank you all.
And we continue to thank you for your support so that we can support our Black community here. And I just want to kind of ride off of what you were saying, Livia. I noticed there are about 20 participants, including all of the Black Humboldt coordinators. I just want to commend you all for being here today. There's so much going on. We've been in COVID. People want to get out the house. People want to do things. People are overwhelmed. People are dying. People are sick. But you're here and you made it. And you know, the thing that's running through my mind, I have to be honest, how there were like hundreds of people on Zoom for Juneteenth last year for Black Humboldt celebration. And I'm like, is this the trend? Hashtag trending Blackness that was going on. Everybody want to be Black, but nobody want to be Black. You know the song. But like, let's continue to spread that message that our Black lives are not a trend. And it is an honor to be alive, to be breathing, whether by virtue of the trauma we experience as Black people or COVID and everything else that comes with this experience, the double consciousness of this experience. So give yourself some love and honor yourself for showing up. And also for you who are watching on Facebook Live, thank you for at least tuning in. And we hope to see you in person someday. Stay alive, Black people. So now I want to introduce, it is an honor to introduce this brother. His name is Dr. Kintay Johnson. Doctor to you. Make sure y'all say doctor. We want to respect this man. He is the VP of Eureka NAACP, but he is also making a difference in education at College of the Redwoods. And he makes impacts and strides quietly and he leads from behind. He is a true African king. He's from the South. I feel like he is from home. And so I would love to welcome you all. Welcome Dr. Kintay Johnson to the stage. Please give a virtual round of applause or ASL applause and lead us in the next phase of our Juneteenth celebration with a Juneteenth speech. Thank you, Dr. Kintay.
Wow. I'm like blown away by that introduction. Thank you so much. That's like crazy. I'm like shaking right now. Cause like one, I'm super honored and humbled to be able to be your keynote for the day. Because like I'm sure there's like more qualified people than myself, right? To like talk about such an important day. But I was honored that Black Humboldt reached out to me, and when they said that I could make it personal, because when I think about this day, to me, this is a day of reflection about my ancestors and what they endured and those people who paved the way. And so I want to give a little bit, just in case people don't know, our glorious host gave us an introduction about Juneteenth. But as we know, General Gordon rode in June 19th, 1865, my apologies, almost 2 years, full years after President Lincoln read the proclamation, the Emancipation Proclamation. And about 250,000, upon their estimate, Black people were still enslaved in Texas, almost 2 months after General Lee surrendered in Virginia. And upon hearing that news, and he read the proclamation that you heard earlier, and I'll repeat, which goes, where he says that the people of Texas are informed that in accordance with proclamation from the executive of the United States, that all slaves are free. And this was General Order number 3, read by General Gordon as he arrived in Galveston. And as you can imagine, what's unique about it is, right, our history and our struggle of people, and we're talking about freedom. But we've always, even when in chains and enslaved, we still was practicing, and we still had parts of us where we were expressing our freedom. What's sad about to me is about this holiday, of what I would say is, before I get into like why I think it's important to me, is that here we are years later, and the federal government finally catching up and recognizing this day as a holiday. This day has been celebrated in Texas since 1979, when it was signed into law. I would say the very first official recognition of it come from Texas, which I also think is ironic when we're talking about Juneteenth and the importance of it. So for me, when I think about my family and my ancestors, and I think about the struggle and what they had to go through and why that's important, I feel like I hear my grandmother's message, her words echoing in my head all the time. Like, you got to know where you came from, so you know where you're going. That's the only way you're going to know who you are, right? And part of my journey and part of my history and the learning about Juneteenth and the importance of our ancestors and their struggles, as I got older and older and older and older, you know, you get that oral history, right? It's passed down to us from generation to generation. Hold on, here's my mom in the background. She probably TikToking or something. Mom, hold on real quick. Mom. Sorry, y'all. But my mom's here. So, but to get that.
Yeah.
I can't hear you. I can hear you. Yes, I can hear your video, Mom. I'm sorry, y'all. But speaking of ancestors, without my mom and without one of the most important people, my father, you know, I wouldn't be here. And so part of my discussion today is I want to like focus on that part. I want to focus on and highlight some of my journey and finding out about myself and my ancestors. And I feel like by learning about them and parts about them and things that they liked and they loved, I can definitely see where I feel like part of those traits and habits and things that they like were definitely passed on to me. So the first person, of course, that I really want to discuss is I want to discuss my pops. You know, I don't know how many people know much about my story with my pops, but I didn't grow up with my pops, so I never really met him. And he passed away before I had the opportunity to meet him. But that never stopped me from like learning about him and learning about his life and how he grew up. And one of those things that helped me learn about him was I took an ancestry DNA test. And when I took that ancestry DNA test, that connected me to family members on my father's side of the family. And I was actually able to get connected with my dad's biological sister, my aunt. And come to find out, I had doing this journey of trying to find out about my father and about him growing up, I got really interested in genealogy and learning about it. And come to find out, my aunt is the family genealogist. She is the researcher. She is the person. So we both have this unique interest in our family history and learning about our history. And together, we've been able to unlock so much about our history and so much about our family to where discussions with her, I come to find out that my father was a high school track star. He built his family's television. The first TV that they ever had when they were children, he built it. I love music. I feel like I have a musical ear, and come to find out, my father taught himself how to play several instruments and could play the piano very, very well. And I love piano music. I love classical music. I love listening to Mozart. And come to find out, my dad, this is my dad. My dad loved all of those things. I love airplanes. I love flying. My father was an aircraft mechanic. I love drones. I love flying remote control airplanes. My father, same way. When I physically first met my aunt for the first time, when in DC, she starts crying and she tells me, "You look like my brother. You remind me so much of my brother." And to hear that and to hear my aunt confirm that, you know, there was nothing like a greater feeling than that. And so during our conversations, I find out that my grandmother, my dad's mom, her mother skin color was so light that people thought for the longest that she was a white woman. And when she had my grandmother, who was a brown chocolate woman, the people looked at her very like, during that time. Because my grandmother who my great grandmother, who I'm talking about, who had the very light skin, she was one of 8 children. And her father, his name was Thomas Wellington Thurston. And what's unique about Thomas Wellington Thurston is Thomas Wellington Thurston in the late 1800s ran the only Black, full-on Black, 650 employees silk production mill for the Ashley and Bailey Company in North Carolina. My grandfather successfully set up 3 mills for them and ran the one in North Carolina. And I like to think that because when you see pictures of him, he's dapper and he's dressed up and he likes silk. I love silk. I like the way it feels good. So I like to think that I got a little bit of my swag from my great grandpa. You know, he always liked to dress up. He liked to wear bow ties. He liked to wear suits. He liked to look really nice. So I like to think I got a little style from him. But then what's also unique about my family is I'm a veteran. I spent 8 years in the United States military, and ever since I was a child, I wanted to be a soldier. That's what I wanted to do. I remember being in the woods using pine cones as grenades and having sticks as my rifle and us throwing mud on our face like we got camo and crawling through the woods and ambushing each other. I wanted to be a soldier ever since I was a child. So I joined the high school. I spent 4 years in the Army. I spent 4 years in the ROTC in high school. I went in as a PF. I went in as an E3, PFC, and I loved it. I was a quartermaster. I was a patrolling laboratory specialist, combat support, fueler. We were prepared to go anywhere in the world upon being notified within 11 hours. That was our motto. We would respond, we'd be on the tarmac, ready to be deployed anywhere within 11 hours of being notified. So I spent 8 years of my life doing that, being combat ready. And come to find out in my journey, I come from a long line of soldiers. My father served, his father served, and his father served. And then on my mother's side, her father served, and her grandfather served. So I come from a long line of soldiers, military members who have fought in wars in just about every conflict this country has been involved in. There's been a family member of mine wearing their uniform, hoping to be free, hoping to be recognized as a human, as a man, So there's so much of them that like I look at and I see and it's parts of me within myself. To be able, for instance, to find my grandfather's draft card, 20 years old, working for the federal government at the time, which was unique. Here's a 20-year-old Black man working for the office. Let me get the right name. It's like the Office of Procurement Management or something like that. But I looked up the organization, and it's the Office of Production Management. And what I found was that what my grandfather was actually doing was working for the government to be able to get military supplies and purchases for the war effort. That is what he was doing when he got drafted. So, and if you look at that in a way, if you know anything about military, that's part of being a quartermaster. And I was a quartermaster. So it's so much of like just learning about my family and the people coming around full history. I mean, full circle with this journey to be able to unlock my DNA test. You know, I know people talk about ancestry and, you know, use the other ones and there's all these other different products. But I say whichever one that works for you, find that one and use that one, because there's so much of our oral history, right, that's been passed down to us. But when we get into some of these systems and we get, we take advantage of some of these resources, we can actually get physical copies of documents with our family members' names. Like, I don't know if I can share my screen, but if I could share my screen right now, I could show you the picture of my grandfather's draft card. I can show you the picture of the silk mill. That's the one in North Carolina right now that is a historical national monument that my grandfather ran with 650 something employees, where he's listed in the who's of African Americans during the time. I come to find out that through my journey, I am a Clay. I am related to Senator Henry Clay from Kentucky, who is also a descendant of his is Muhammad Ali. Cassius Clay, who would be one of my cousins based on our tree lineage, where we come from. What's unique about him is, to me, here's a man who stood up for social justice and issues, and he was vocal and he did those things. He in a way, I consider him like an abolitionist. But what's also unique about his name is the first Clay, Cassius Clay, he also became an abolitionist. They called him the Lion of Whitehall. And he had several attempts on his life for believing that Black people should be free. Now, he didn't believe, now I'm not gonna give him all the credit and put him on no pedestal and say that he was like full on progressive, because he didn't believe in like full on immediate freedom. He believed in progressive freedom. But what's unique was he came out against his father. He freed his slaves. He actually started a paper in Kentucky, an anti-slavery paper, abolitionist paper, where he wrote about anti-slavery movement. He also was super influential and an influence to Abraham Lincoln. And writing to him and letting him know and talking to him about freeing Black people and why it was wrong and why they should be enslaved. And that is why I bring him up today. Not to like just focus on him, but to talk about there's all of these parts of these people who I've learned about during my history, when I'm doing my research, who I can see parts of myself, parts of my personality, parts of the people, where it's in me. I'm not a deeply religious person, but I have ministers and preachers and everything in my background. My aunt, who I spoke of, is I want to say she's like a bishop or something like that. Like it's like I can't explain it. But there's these people who I've met in my journey, and I feel like it's connected me more to who I am. I've learned about what I like, what I don't like, what kind of people I like to hang out with, my tastes, my dislikes, it's taught me so much. And so I want us as a people to look more, not just get that oral history, but try to get research access to some of those documents. You know, I know there's questions and things like that, you know, people who, you know, may not be comfortable with it, right? Because we also have seen this kind of stuff get used in a way to come after people, right? So there's a risk involved in it. There is, and I want to be fully transparent, you know, about that. But at the same time, I want to say that without it, without me taking this test, you know, and digging into my research, there's no way I would have found out that I'm 34% Nigerian, that I'm 15% Cameroon, that I'm 13% Mali, that I'm 10% Benin Togo, that I'm 8% from Ivory, Ghana, that I'm also 5% European, that I'm 5% Scottish, I'm 4% Norwegian, I'm 3% Wales, 1% Portuguese, 1% Germanic Europe, and also 1% Native American. Without that, I wouldn't have got those percentages. I got the oral history. My grandmother always told me that we were connected, that her people came from the tribes, that her people were Cherokee. My grandfather always told me that his people were part Black Seminole, were part Seminole. And as I do my research and I see the migration and his people migrating from those areas, I'm able to get that. I'm also able to know that, like, my ancestors are a part of the early Virginia Africans. So they were some of the first Africans to arrive here in the United States. I'm able to link this stuff up. I'm able to find out about how my people migrated from the different areas. They were in Virginia, Maryland, the Carolinas. I'm able to also make connections with people and also match connections with people who take the test that I know, and able to confirm those relationships to get even more information. So this Juneteenth and moving forward, if we don't do anything else, if you don't do anything else, I encourage you all to go deep. Sit down with your relatives, your ancestors. Don't let that oral history, like, don't lose it. Don't let it go away. You know, there's times where I look back and I sit back and I think about, like, my grandmother and, like, how much of her story I should have gotten, because I think about Florida, right? And you think about Florida and Florida being Spanish control and how many natives was there. And we have, where I'm from, one of the oldest Spanish forts that they held Native Americans in the United States. It is right now an area where you can go to. And in that area, one of the people that they held in that area was Geronimo. Geronimo was held captive in my area in Northwest Florida. History is such an amazing part. Yeah, we get force-fed the stuff they teach us in school, but there's so much of our history, so much of our contributions, so many things that we as a people and our people have done, that it's important that we pass it on to the next generations. That's why you can't see them, but my two youngest children are sitting right over there on the couch right now, listening to every word that I'm saying, listening to the national anthem being sung by our sister Tina Okoye, listening to this stuff. It is important to me that they get that history, that they get that knowledge passed on to them, that they have access to these resources so that they know where they came from, so that they know who they are as people. Because I think it's important for them to be able to have that foundation to stand upon. to be able to also know that as they tell us, right, you take the information they teach you in school, you know, that history with a grain of salt. So I don't want to open it up a little bit because I want to hear some unique people about you and your family, whoever want to share, who want to honor a ancestor that they feel like where part of that ancestor has influenced who they are as an individual. So I want to ask somebody, use the reactions. If you can, raise your hand. I would love to call on you. And I can't see everybody. Dang. If anybody want to raise their hand, if not, then I'll go on. But if anybody, oh, I saw a hand. I saw a hand. Where'd it go? Desi. Desi. Who's a ancestor that you know about, my brother, that you feel like has influenced you or has an influence on you?
I'm honored to be able to share the earth with him still. My grandfather, he's just a really, really cool man. I've never seen him yell, scream, anything. He's just the coolest man I've ever met. And a couple of years ago, I had the honor of going down to where my family's from, Trinidad and Tobago, with him. And he was sitting there cool, just chilling with one of his friends. And they were talking about when they went on strike one time. And they said that really cool, real calm, real cool dude. And he's like, yeah, one of the dudes, he kept trying to go in. So we just threw dynamite in his house. And it was just so calm. And I was just like, that's where the labor, like my labor rights thing comes from. It's like, yeah, I've always had this just like, yo, it comes from deep within. Like, we gonna fight for equality regardless. And so, yeah, I'm just like honored to still share the earth with him and reminded me to give him another call.
That's beautiful. Your grandpa, man, your grandpa's a rebel. I like that, you know. That and I oh I'm not gonna say that, but your grandpa's a rebel. Shout out to your grandpa. Please take advantage. You know, him being around. I wish my grandfather on my mom's side for sure was still around and that I could pick his brain because he was a man as well who was drafted, served in the military, but he also was a man who worked 35 years in the pulp mill in Cantonment, Florida, and was one of the most hardest working individuals that I ever met. He was a hustler too. My granddad was all about his dollar. So like, you know, and he was about his paper. So he was the first Black man in his whole neighborhood. Cause you know, back where I'm from, we still live a little segregated. There's still some all Black neighborhoods. There's still some all white neighborhoods. And for him, for us, he's the first Black man to be rocking the VW. And come to find out, I love VWs. I done had like 6 of them. So it was like, and he's the first Black man to have a VW bus. I had a VW bus in college at a 1970 Volkswagen. You know, we called her Big Red. That was my girl. But that love for that, you know, I like to think that I get like part of my work ethic. You know, he used to love to see me dressed in my uniform when I was in high school. He used to actually check my uniform out on inspection day and make sure my ribbons and stuff were straight, you know, because he knew all about that stuff. He taught me how to fish, you know, taught me how to drive a boat, you know, all of that I learned from my grandfather. you know, but there's so much more about his childhood that I wish that I had the opportunity to learn from. And, you know, if you still have those walk-in libraries and knowledges, you know, people around, please take advantage, in a good way, of course, and ask them their stories, write it down, chart down those dates. I can't stress that enough. Dates are super important. Birth dates, death dates, things like that when you're doing this research, places people have lived. All of those things are super important to help you get started on your journey if you haven't. I highly encourage you, make a family tree, start adding people to it, you know, and as you get more information about people, start connecting the physical documents and the records that you find, and use those documents to help you find more information out about those people and more about their stories and more about their journey, you know? So I think it's super, super, super important. So is there anybody else? Yeah, any other takers? Just one more time. I'm gonna ask. Anybody? No? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Who is that? Say your name for the people.
My name's Dylan Avery Hart.
How you doing, Mr. Hart?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
I'm well, thank you. What's an ancestor? Somebody that's important to you or that you feel like that's had an influence on you and who you are as an individual today?
Yeah. I actually just dove into the ancestry thing too. Got sold on an ancestry kit and had the same kind of reluctance at first, but went ahead and popped it in the mail. And yeah, I've been down the rabbit hole, man. I similar thing. I was born in Galveston, so I'm from the home of Juneteenth, and I actually haven't had much connection with my dad's side of the family. He passed when I was really young, so same thing. It put me in connection with my aunt actually on his side, and sure enough, she was kind of like the family historian and kind of held on to a lot of records, things like that. Aunts will do it for you, you know. So I want to shout out her for sure, Aunt D. And but yeah, through some research and stuff, I found a lot of stuff. I actually found some documents. My family lineage in slavery is based in South Carolina and the shores there, and then my family actually stayed on the same plot of land for all the way up until my grandpa actually moved them from Newberry, Edgefield, South Carolina to Philadelphia, and then and so they stayed on the same pieces of land they slaved on for years, and I found a document from one of my, I guess it would be like, I don't know, third great grandpa, fourth great grandpa, Solomon Harp. I found some documents on them where they had census, and they were born in the late 1700s. So they were roughly like 70, 80 years old during the first legal census that the government held for our people. And in one of the census papers, there were people that had stated in my family lineage, like where you could put where you're born, where your parents were born, where your mom was born, all that, where you were born. They had actually wrote that they were from Africa. And so I was just, when I saw that, I was amazed, you know, that after coming to this country and you know, I would assume they were born in around 1765. So they were probably, you know, imported into this country, sold into this country sometime between then and like 1785, after spending probably like 50, 60 years, the majority of their whole life in slavery. It just, it resonated with me on a higher level that like you said, they really held on to that part of their personage, their blood. You know, they wanted somebody to see that, you know, because census taking back then wasn't like, a lot of these white census takers were too scared to even come into Black areas and Black sharecropping areas. So they would just, you know, large swaths, just, you know, you've seen the papers, just dash marks to indicate same place, South Carolina. And so like, I'm reading down the dashes, and all of a sudden I see Africa next to my ancestor. I'm like, man, like they found that important their kids, their ancestors, us to hang on to that part of themselves that this country couldn't tear apart. Sure, we have American after African, but yeah, that lineage really resonated with me. So that was something. Thank you for letting me share, and thank you for sharing your piece with us too, Kintay. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. That's amazing that you were able to find a record like that, that states that they came from Africa. As the young brother just highlighted, it's hard to get a lot of our stuff, especially get a lot of our original documents and stuff like that has this information on it. And so that to get a record like that, that's pretty amazing. My hat's off to you for sure on that find. So I know I've like talked about myself a little bit, why it's important to me, a little bit about the Juneteenth, open it up a little bit to some others, and I appreciate them for sharing and for honoring the people who has been important and influential to them, whether alive or they're not. This day is one where, in a way, to me, it's bittersweet too. Like, yes, I acknowledge and I recognize the survival instincts that my ancestors and the things that they had to endure in order for this little Black body to be sitting here today to be able to talk to you about Juneteenth. But I also want us to not forget the other parts of why this day is so important. This day is important, and we should use this day to remind us that we as a people must be also involved in our community. We must be involved in our city. We must be involved in our local politics. We must be registered to vote. We must exercise our voice at all levels of government. I see Deanna's hand up. So.
Hey. So I also have been doing some work, and well, I feel like I've been doing this work for a long time, actually, with my mom, because my mom actually, and all of her cousins, they're all in their 50s and 60s doing this work of researching our family. And so I guess I was about maybe 16 when I started looking at what my mom was doing. And so my great granny, my grandfather, the Fletcher side of the family, I found out we're not even Fletchers because my great granny is Cherokee Indian, and her parents the pictures look white, but I think one of her parents are white and one of the other parents is Cherokee. So she had fled Virginia and moved to New York and married a man named Fletcher. So there's really no Fletchers by blood. So I always said that's Mass's name because it literally comes out of nowhere. So I'm really supposed to be Deanna Rose. And we found an uncle who lived in DC who was holding all of this family information of like our lineage, but then he died. And so it's hard trying to get all these folks together. And I remember I told my mom, I said, that whole time when I was a little girl, I thought Nanny, her name was Minnie Rose Fletcher. The whole time I thought she was Black, but she was Cherokee. So I was like, I just thought she was like hella light skinned. So it's just interesting to find out this history. And then like with my dad's side of the family, because I'm Nigerian, it's just simply put, like that's like no research I have to do, but I still feel that like that I call it the double consciousness adopted after Du Bois of this like trying to find that the teetering balance between my identity as a Nigerian woman and an American descendant of slaves, and also of Cherokee descent. So I'm like that. It's just an interesting thing going on there.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Um, I, I'd love to know what you find as you dig deeper and deeper, because it's interesting that you bring up that part about fleeing, because part of the oral history that's passed down to me, my great grandma, um, who was Native, she actually fled from the area that I talked about in Florida that they was holding Native Americans captive. She kept fleeing a lot. And this story goes that this family took her in when she was younger. But her and so it's interesting history, interesting stories and stuff. I'm still trying to like match up some of the stuff, of course. But it's been an interesting journey to learn about it, you know, to uncover that like on through like my grandfather on my dad's side, I'm related to one of the presidents, like one of my cousins. And then on my grandmother's side, I'm related to one of the other presidents, one of my cousins. So I'm related to President Madison, but I'm also related to President Harrison. So it's been a unique journey. And like I was gonna wrap it up with, which leads me to the importance of this day, is learning about all that stuff, but also making sure you exercise your voice, that you get involved in your community, that you teach your children why it's important to be involved, why it's important for them to use their voices and to be concerned about social justice issues. And also not to forget that the one part about this day that what I was talking about, where I said earlier, that makes me a little bitter is that I'm not gonna lie, y'all. I'm still waiting on my damn 40 acres and my mule. So until we get some reparations, I appreciate them coming along 40 years after the fact to recognize this day as a federal damn holiday. But give me my 40 acres and my mule that was promised. Give me that. And then we can have some real talk about how we move forward as a country. I want to thank y'all so much for letting me just drop this and get personal with y'all about it. But we still got work to do. Hey, everything everybody's saying in the chat, I'm feeling that's right. No, we don't want no old Navy dashikis either. That's right. None of that. So thank y'all so much. I hope that you enjoy the rest of the Juneteenth celebration. I hope that you found some of what I said enlightening and that it inspired you to dig deeper into your own journey, into your own history, so that it doesn't just die with us and it doesn't just die with our parents. Thank you so much. Happy Jubilee Day, Happy Freedom Day, Happy Juneteenth, whatever you want to call it, Black Independence, or whatever you want to call it today. But thank y'all so much. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kintay, for your truth, for being vulnerable with us, and sharing all of your journey and your wisdom. We honor you. We love you. And most importantly, I love seeing a Black brother in the community and leading. It's so important to lift each other up as we're continuing to not be valued in the world. So I wanna give you your flowers virtually, but we will also be giving you something as a gift to say thank you.
Great. Welcome back, community. I hope everyone enjoyed your breakout session. I know I did. I just want to introduce our Knowledge for Power session that will be coming up next. We have Tina Okoye and Diana. I don't know why I just flunked like I don't know your name. And Diana and Lovu. They're going to be, their session is entitled The One Drop Rule, Cool. And this is a session that's just going to talk about what is Blackness and explore the effects of colorism on Black people globally, looking at history, writing, and having courageous conversations. So I encourage you to stay tuned, get involved, and listen up. Here we go.
Thank you, Mo. Thank you all for coming back to join us in return for the 2:00 session. My name is Deanna, and I am passionate about uplifting Black people and brown skin, dark skin, and honoring the melanin. I'm honoring the melanin right now, getting in the sun. So I'm gonna shoot it over to you, Tina.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tina Okoye. For those who do not know me, I am a committed Humboldtian, especially when it comes to Black and brown folks. I'm really happy to be here to continue to educate even when I'm afar. For those who don't know, I'm actually on the East Coast. So it is 5 o'clock over here. But it's always still an honor and a pleasure to still participate in all the good work that Black Humboldt has done and all of you participating time and time again. So just thank you for having me.
We want you all to feel free to drop in and chat, to express yourself, to share what you're feeling and thinking, anything that's differentiating from what we're saying, your own personal experiences, what you've seen. So feel free to engage with us. This session is going to be more conversational. So you'll see Tina and I having a conversation because we don't want to talk at you. We want to make sure that you understand that these are our views that we're sharing with each other. And Tina and I might have even differing views and opinions. And then we'll also find where we align in this journey for this Knowledge for Power session. So again, feel free to drop in the chat. Tina, you want to have anything to add on to that before we start?
No, I think what you said is perfectly perfect, actually. I do think what's beautiful about Blackness in general is that we're not a monolith. We have different views, we have different perspectives. And I think it's really a great opportunity to share them. And with the chat, and what Dee was saying with the chat, please feel free to express how you're feeling regarding anything that we have to say. If you can connect with us, if you can't connect with us, that's totally okay. That's what this space is for. Just as long as it doesn't create any sort of hostility or pain, we want to express that because this whole idea of our program is to empower and uplift and expose and educate folks. So
dope. So we just want to open up with a little brief history of the brown paper bag test. We named our session One Drop Rule, cool, because it just seems to be taboo or something now where everyone is excited to be like, I'm partially Black and I have a little bit of this and I have a little bit of that and my grandma is Black and my, such and such is Black and African and Jamaican, whoever. And it just seems to be about being cool to be Black. There's actually a hip hop song that says everybody want to be Black, but nobody want to be Black. So we wanted to take you back a little bit for the brown paper bag test, and that came out of this idea that if you were light enough to pass in society post-slavery, and so during the segregation period, there was just this idea of like light is right, and we encourage you all to look up the history on the brown paper bag test. It still kind of exists today, but except we're not using a brown paper bag. It's shown in different ways, and it shows up in different parts of our society and systems. Um, so, Tina, what do you think about the brown paper bag test?
So it took me a while to actually understand what that meant. And I know that historically, it was really popular for certain historically Black fraternities and sororities, specifically the Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. And I think it was really just a way of survival. And even though it had such unfortunate consequences, I think these organizations have started to learn how it can negatively impact the community, and that it's not really benefiting the Black community, but actually going towards white supremacy. So obviously, even though that's a painful history, it's something that it should be learned, and what can we do moving forward? So I think that the brown paper bag test just shows that we have a lot of work to do in terms of admiring that being Black, one, has a lot of shades, but that doesn't mean there is one shade better than the other. So that's what I've gotten from it.
Yeah, and to think that, and to be clear, so we want to focus on this topic of colorism because we do it to ourselves in our own communities. Am I light enough? I don't want to be in the sun. I don't want to get too dark, or you know, I remember meeting someone from Sri Lanka, and they said that in Sri Lanka, that if you're dark, that means that you were a lower class, you're a outdoor worker in this current society. And then you got Black people who are bleaching their skin. And I had a friend who asked me, had I ever had any issues with that as a child, and I was like, I don't ever remember not loving being brown skinned, but I don't like when the sun tans me more in one spot than the other, and then I'm trying to get the other side tan. I'm like, I just want to be an even brown. What was that like for you, Tina?
So what was interesting is that I think I was lucky to have family who were like, yeah, this is your skin, like you don't worry about what that looks like. I mean, I feel like I'm the lightest I've been in a really long time, just because I work now and I'm inside. I'm not outside. I'm not outside as much as I used to be, like, because I would get as dark as, like, I was basically looking purple, but I thought my skin looked real nice, and people would tell me I look nice. So I was like, all right, I guess it's cool. But I definitely feel you on the idea that I had to even out my skin tone, because I would be looking pale on my shoulders and then dark on my forearms, and I would look a little goofy. But I would say that it wasn't until college that I noticed more of this idea of colorism, where people were like, oh, like, we're like, you're the same color as I am. And someone would be like, no, you're not, you real dark. But it wasn't as if it was a compliment. It almost felt like an insult. And I was really disheartened and saddened by that, because I'm like, yo, like our skin is bomb. Like, we can handle the sun and we glow. So I don't understand why people are so upset about it. But as time went on, this idea of being light is right started to play more and more, especially when it came to finding a new job, like finding a job, being in the workplace, where most of those spaces are predominantly white.
Yeah, I'm thinking about two things. I'm gonna go off of what you just said. I remember a time when someone was saying that I was dark skin, and it's interesting because people have different spectrums of dark skin, and like I have some part of my family who are actually very melanated. I would say a little bit more dark skin, a lot more dark skin than you, Tina. Like, and so when people say I'm dark skin, I'm like, oh, I thought I was brown skin. It looks brown to me. And my little brother always says that he's brown, he's not Black. So there's also like the race conversation about that thing, like what is brown and Black, and what is dark and what is light. How do we identify something as light skin, caramel? And then there's a person who was lighter than me who said that they were dark skinned. And so I'm like, this conversation and spectrum about how we're conditioned in society about what is dark and what is light is still a conditioning of the brown paper bag test. It's just not with the bag, right? And then I'm also thinking about this time when I went to the doctor. I wanted to figure out why the back of my neck, my mom is listening, she's gonna laugh. The back of my neck is dark, and I don't know if it's from the sun or if it's from a skin condition. So I asked my doctor, like, what's going on with that? And the doctor was saying that it's like a skin thing and it has to do with like some health stuff. And I'm just like, well, I try to tan my back and cover my neck because I'm like, I think there's also like this idea that like, it's wrong to be dark or discolored. And I would say like, even for people who have melanated skin, like I am learning to embrace the different colors that my skin will have, either are carrying by like something hereditary or melanin, or even something as simple as a bruise, like how to love that part of you because you are of so many hues and you know, skin tones and stuff. So
Love that.
all right, I'm gonna play our first video. So Tina and I prepped a few videos for everyone to check out, and you're gonna hear us just dialogue about these videos.
Today, friends, we're talking about the light-skinned elephant in the room and why it keeps getting all of the attention. In the world of pop culture, darker-skinned women have frequently gotten the short end of the success stick. Just consider...
Let me reshare this, sorry. Let's try this again.
In the world of pop culture, darker-skinned women have frequently gotten the short end of the success stick. Just consider the most successful Black female singers in the last decade. You could probably come up with dozens of names, including Alicia Keys, Ciara, Mariah Carey, Jhené Aiko, and of course, Beyonce. But can you name even 5 deeply melanated female pop stars? I mean, we did have Brandy as Cinderella, but that was 20 years ago. Wait, was it? From Lena Horne, the first Black actress to sign a major studio deal, to Halle Berry, the first Black actress to win a Best Actress Academy Award, lighter-skinned and often mixed-race women have usually broken through society's biggest barriers first. Now, this isn't to say they weren't hardworking or didn't deserve it, but Black people with lighter skin, straighter hair, and more Eurocentric features have always been more likely to be given the paltry number of opportunities to access white spaces and institutions. This is the reality, but why? Now, before we answer that, we gotta say, who's considered dark-skinned or light-skinned is all relative and definitely varies from culture to culture. But for our purposes, when we say light-skinned, think Nicki Minaj, Zoe Kravitz, Rihanna, Zendaya. And when we say dark-skinned, think Viola Davis, Kelly Rowland, and Lupita. The roots of this light versus dark inequality stem all the way back to the days of slavery, when lighter-skinned slaves, often the mixed children of white slave owners, aka the product of rape, aka you're not slick Thomas Jefferson, were given domestic work as opposed to the physical labor of darker slaves, thus landing higher on the skin tone hierarchy because of their proximity to whiteness. This separation was enacted based on the slave traders' false beliefs that darker-skinned people were better suited for hard labor, whereas lighter-skinned Blacks were thought to be better suited for intelligent and domestic tasks. Don't get it twisted though, whether in the house or in the field, they were still enslaved, so it was definitely not a choice, no matter what your weird cousin on Facebook says. Out of the house slave versus field slave mentality came white supremacist stereotypes that framed light-skinned people as the good Blacks and darker-skinned people as lazy, unintelligent, unattractive, undesirable, criminal, aggressive, and just all around bad. Now, while the skin tone hierarchy known as colorism is a byproduct of white supremacy, it's not just a white thing. Stereotypical figures like the angry Black woman and sassy Black friend are unfortunately also present in Black-made media. In the recent past, there have been numerous examples of Black people in the media perpetuating the idea that lighter is better. The popular 90s sitcom Martin, as brilliant as it was, is a shining example of this problem. Light-skinned Gina was positioned as attractive, intelligent, and funny versus her dark-skinned friend Pam, who despite being bangin', was often coded as unattractive and the butt of many of Martin's jokes. And what we will not do is stand for anyone coming for sitcom legend Tashina Arnold. And there's been even more recent instances of this. Remember that time Kanye West held a Yeezy casting asking for multiracial women only? Or when the casting call for the movie Straight Outta Compton described A girls as the hottest of the hottest with real hair, and D girls as, and I quote, African American girls, poor, not in good shape, medium to dark skin tone. Yikes, it be your own people. Or remember when rapper Kodak Black, himself a dark-skinned black man, said that he doesn't date women who share his complexion because they're too gutter? Come on now, Kodak, black is in your name. These examples point to the fact that many Black people, even those with the power to create change within their own industries, sometimes internalize the very colorist stereotypes that have kept them down. Now, the media doesn't necessarily cause colorism, but it reinforces it in ways that have real-world implications. Colorism has much wider ramifications than just who we see on our movie screens or on the cover of magazines. So prepare your hot Cheetos and Tums, because this gets even sadder. A 2011 study conducted in North Carolina found out that of the over 12,000 African American women prisoners, light-skinned women were sentenced to 12% less prison time than darker ones. Or consider the fact that according to a Harvard University study, dark-skinned blacks in the United States have lower socioeconomic status, more punitive relationships with the criminal justice system, diminished prestige, and less likelihood of holding elective office compared with their lighter counterparts. There have even been black dating apps with filters for skin tone. In other words, by privileging lighter skin, straighter hair, and more Eurocentric features, the media creates an environment that affects dark-skinned people on a social, political, and personal level. And yes, the only Aunt Viv I recognize is the original dark-skinned Aunt Viv. Now, of course, lighter-skinned people of color are not exempt from discrimination or racism, but acknowledging that they experience light-skin privilege doesn't negate those struggles. But don't worry, I have great news. Well, maybe not great news, but helpful. There are some things that all people of color can do to combat colorism within their communities and in pop culture as a whole. This includes catching yourself from using language like pretty for a dark-skinned girl, engaging in open and honest conversations about how colorism affects your daily life, and if you're light-skinned, acknowledging your privilege. Because at the end of the day, it shouldn't be team light skin versus team dark skin. It should be team melanated people of all sizes, shapes, and shades versus society's dumb bull. And look, we all have biases. To learn more and to challenge your own, check out lookdifferent.org. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time right here on Decoded.
Amazing. Amazing.
So what do you think about that?
I think I think that I really love, well, first of all, I love Francisca Ramsey. I think she does such a good job at giving really important and sometimes, painful information in a way that's digestible and engaging. And I think the thing that stuck out to me the most is just this internalized racism, right? Like, I think that's the hardest concept to really talk about, because some people really don't realize what they're doing or perpetuating when they say things like that, like, oh, you're pretty for a dark-skinned girl, or I like my red bone kind of girls. Like, they really don't realize what they're bringing out to the world and who they're isolating when they're saying those things. So I think I really do like that video, because it really does shed a lot of light on why colorism does destroy the Black community, because at the end of the day, the world still all sees us as Black, and we do still deal with a lot of the consequences of being Black. But when there's that one person being like, well, at least I'm a little bit lighter, it just feels like we're falling backwards. I don't know. It's this tug of war. It can be really frustrating sometimes.
Yeah, the whole thing about Kodak Black, Tina, I'm passionate about this, but all of the hip hop songs, there's this one hip hop song by Pop Smoke that goes, light skin, my type. And I'm like, I was vibing with this song until I heard that, because I was just like, oh my gosh, your personal preference has nothing to do with respecting all Black women. And great, that's his song. He has his creative freedom of speech, but it's perpetuating this constant narrative about light-skinned people through media, and it just disregards the love for darker skinned people. So I don't know. What do you think about that?
Well, I always think it's always tough with the media because because a lot of these people have such a huge impact, especially with impressionable minds like younger people, and because it's like the day to day, it becomes so innate that people really believe that this indoctrination is their own thoughts, and that always troubles me because when there are people who want to think critically, they almost get dismissed and isolated because it's not the, I guess it's not the consensus, if you will. So yeah, there's a lot of good music that's giving out, it's not always giving out the most positive perspectives on how we should view people, because yeah, we are all Black, we are all brown, and it should be respected. It shouldn't matter the hue, whether it's a little bit lighter or a little bit darker. And it's so easy to say, but why can't we act on that, right? Like, actions do speak louder, you know? So, and I think about that a lot.
And almost, oh, sorry.
No, I just want to say, like, because even as someone who, you know, I believe in that Blackness, I believe that everyone should be valued for who they are. Sometimes I slip up, right? Because we're constantly being inundated with this idea that, you know, light is right. So like, how do we unlearn and then relearn, which can be emotionally exhausting when there's other forces telling you, nah, what you're doing is crazy. Like, stick to the status quo.
Let's hire all the light-skinned chicks. And, you know, it's, oh, I lost my train of thought. I think one of the things I wanted to point on, when you were talking about indoctrination, and in that indoctrination, are we looking at if that's fetishization? Because people have foot fetishes, hand fetishes, you know, all these different things, and that's their thing, and you're entitled to that. But when we start fetishizing skin color instead of looking at spirit and love and these things, we're really selling ourselves short and missing out on the love and abundance you can have despite what someone looks like. So there's a bit of like fetish, vanity, there's a indoctrination, there's a mix of things in that pot there.
Yeah. And what I actually like, someone actually brought in a really good point in terms of, yeah, people are allowed to have preferences. Like, you're allowed to love whoever you want. It's just this idea of like, oh, I like this light-skinned person because this dark-skinned person is X, Y, and Z. It's like, why do you have to add that negative piece to it? Like, no one is saying you can't love whoever you want, but if it means you're going to destroy somebody else, that is what I think is absolutely wrong. Like, it's not right. And it goes back to what you're saying, like, you are really missing out on potentially amazing people just because of that fetishizing, if you will.
On that note, I'm going to start our second video. And it's a brief colorism news flash, y'all. So let's check it out. We'll be skipping around this video a little bit because we just want to get certain points here.
Yeah, it's 2:05.
Discussed publicly. Deborah Roberts is here with more on the story. Good morning, Deborah.
Thank you, time.
Yep, 2:05, you got it.
Uh-oh, it's not letting me move it. You have it, Tina?
I do. I can share it. I got you. Yeah. Oops, sorry. Can y'all hear it?
Hit the unmute button.
Oop.
Showing hourly wages among Blacks literally rising as skin tone lightens. Of supremacy. Its impact woven into American society and can affect every aspect of life. Take a look at the differences in wages for a dark-skinned African American, a brown-skinned, and a light-skinned African American. The study showing hourly wages among Blacks literally rising as skin tone lightens. Lighter-skinned minorities viewed as more intelligent by employers, even with identical education as their darker-skinned counterparts. Experts say these examples of colorism have long-lasting effects of both mental and physical trauma.
The anti-Blackness started with this whole idea that the darker you are, the less human you are. And so everyone's distancing themselves from that. I think multi-generational trauma is evident.
I hated the way I looked. I just wanted to like scratch the dark skin out of my face. One time I was in the bathtub and I wanted to stay in longer so my skin color could get lighter. I just thought that's how it worked.
Anti-colorism organizations like the Beauty Well Project in Minnesota work to end the stigma against darker-skinned people of all races who face discrimination from society as well as their own communities.
I know I was not alone. I know I'm not the only dark-skinned girl that has been bullied. You know, so we need more dark-skinned girls and boys just to speak out.
Thank you, Tina. Oh man. A $5 difference in pay to be light skinned. Oh my gosh. Like, that's insane.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely disheartening. I mean, it's no wonder. And I mean, this is exactly why when people question institutional racism, I'm thinking like, look at this. Like, people can't even make it economically just because of how they show up in the world. And that's why privilege is such a big thing too, because it goes the same way. You have more benefits just because you exist in the world and how you show up in the world. Yeah, it's wild to me.
And I'm also thinking about this little girl saying that she was sitting in the bathtub to lighten her skin, and that self-hate, how much that'll spread if she had just told a friend, like, yeah, you can do this, and then a friend also finds about bleaching, and then another friend finds another way, and then and that's how. And you know, teens, they constantly sharing and teaching each other how to do this and do that challenge. And I think about this play by Toni Morrison, the book, the novel by Toni Morrison, The Bluest Eye, that was adapted by Lydia R. Diamond as a stage play. Piccola wanted to have blue eyes and wanted to lighten her skin. And by the end of the story, I'm sorry if I'm giving it away to people before they read it. Spoiler alert. By the end of the story, Piccola's skin didn't necessarily change and her eyes didn't necessarily turn blue. But mentally, she drove herself to the point of psychological trauma that she self-inflicted, that when she looked in the mirror, she truly thought she saw blue eyes and white skin. How powerful has this social conditioning and racism constructed self-hate in us, that when we look in the mirror, we don't love ourselves, and that this little girl in this play saw something that she wasn't. And that's what that little girl reminded me of.
Right. Yeah. Oh my gosh. That is like, and that's such a good combination. It goes actually to our next segue. I think it works really well on how early this internalized racism, this self-hate can occur, because it's showing up in so many spaces all the time. And even as parents or guardians or people who truly want to dismantle this idea, media and people and the environment can always shut that down. So,
and if we're commodifying light skin, this goes to the point you said. I had to write this note down. You said anybody who was close to whiteness will always pick that side because of social conditioning. So that means if I gotta play the part because I'm light skinned to get $5 extra in my bonus or in that hiring pay, I'm gonna choose anything closest to whiteness. And that's how we've been constructed, particularly in the United States, to commodify our white skin in all of these different places that show up in the States. All right, let's pull up something that takes us to, like you said, the point about childhood and the trauma that's inflicted on children starting at a very young age. There are subtitles, and we chose to make sure that that we show this experience through many lenses throughout the world. This is not just a United States issue. This is a global issue. So tune into the subtitles if you are watching from Facebook Live.
Quale bambola è bianca? Quale bambola è nera? Quale delle due è bella?
Questa.
Qual è quella bella? Qual è quella brutta? E qual è quella buona? Quale è cattiva? Qual è buona?
Lei.
Perché è buona?
Perché ha gli occhi celesti.
Quale è cattiva? Perché è cattiva?
Perché è tutto nero.
E qual è la bambola che ti somiglia di più? Quale bambola è nera?
Mi ha offeso.
Chi?
Tu.
Perché?
Perché mi hai chiamato nero.
Perché ti offendi?
Mi offendi perché altri bambini mi hanno offeso con cattiveria.
No, io non ho usato nessuna cattiveria.
Quello mi sta guardando storto.
That always gets me, no matter what language and part of the world that Tess is done in, whether it's from 1965 or 2021. It gets me every time. And I'm always like, I'm not buying any other dolls except the black doll. I'm like, I want kids to know that the black doll is priority, #1 preference. And I love that growing up, my mom always bought me black dolls. She's particularly mad about my Brandy doll because I cut her hair off because I wanted her to have a little bob. But like, I love that my mom was an example for me because she bought so many black dolls for me, Barbie dolls. And now they have these new line of black dolls out.
Yep. Yeah, that representation was always really important. Like, even for me growing up, I was always looking for black dolls. They were always so hard to find because they just weren't around, like, literally. And I knew early on that they didn't look like me, so why would I get them? And it is really unfortunate that all these little kids, and they're so young. Like, that is the thing that blows my mind. They are so young and they're already being conditioned into thinking that blackness isn't beautiful. It's bad. And it explains why, and like that, just that test alone explains why there is all this discrimination and this police brutality, because we are so ingrained in this idea that blackness is bad, that they have to be criminals, even if they're just trying to exist.
Yeah. And you know, if they are that young, they're not having like hours of intellectual conversation about this thing. Those kids were no more than 7, 8 years old. One looked maybe about 6. 6 years of your life, you've already decided that the black doll is ugly, bad, and what was the other one? Ugly, bad, and
black. I thought it was.
Yeah, and black.
Yeah.
So how do we keep this honoring dark skin and also not looking to white is right or lighter the better, or you know, I've around my hood I done heard plenty of boys say I'm a date a Latina or a white girl, or I'm gonna get a light skin because I don't want a dark baby. Like straight up, just said it like that. Have you heard it, Tina, or am I tripping?
No, you're not. No, you're not tripping. I've heard that too.
Yeah.
You're not tripping. Yeah.
Because we have always been conditioned that we want to procreate lighter babies. We want to bleach our skin so we can be lighter. All these things.
Yep.
Oh, it's heartbreaking. And then you had the one kid. He was only like question 2 in and was like, "I'm done." I already like. There's no amount of like intelligence that kid needed to feel like I'm done. I know where this is going.
Yep. I mean, even the little girl, like you could tell how sad she was, especially when they asked like which doll looks like you, knowing that you said that doll was ugly and that doll was bad.
Yeah.
Like but it just does confirm and reaffirm that children observe and learn things and absorb things quite quickly.
They don't need the words. And I always say the first form of communication is physical and visual.
Yep.
They don't have to have the words. And I'm thinking particularly about the young lady who spoke out. Only one kid was like, "Why are you offending me?" And he's like, "I'm not offending you." And what she's sensing is, where are we going with this thing? Because now you're trying to play me. Like literally is what do you want me to do? What are you trying to tell me about these dolls? Because you didn't ask me all these questions. And what she is getting at is that you are constructing self-hate in me by asking these questions.
Yeah. I thought the ending is always really interesting because, and the way she described it, she basically said like you are black, or who is black, and just the word black offended her because of all the other environmental factors that she had to deal with prior to this conversation. So like that, but I did appreciate her being like, yo, like she was able to defend herself. I liked that. And being able to teach our kids that they shouldn't have to put up with things that are painful to them, and how to do it in a way that is constructive and empowering, right? If you will. Yeah.
She was empowering to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it reminds me how it's always not that many who will speak out.
Yeah.
Very few will speak out. And when we get that one kid who speaks out, the teacher puts a lid on it.
Yep. Which just tells everyone else that it's better just to be quiet and internalize it.
Yeah. How do we get this information? That's another conversation. I just want to say, I'm already brainstorming. Like we gotta. So yeah, I'm glad we were able to connect that intercontinental colorism issue, and it looks differently in every country.
Yeah.
Because there are some people in other countries who don't call themselves black. You know, despite this massive construction of race. You know, and that's also another conversation somewhere else that people can find about the construction of race. I am going to share our final video so that we can have enough time at the end. We want to talk about empowering dark skin, like you said, empower yourself, empower others, and to uplift and uphold dark skin. It's just beautiful. I mean, look, I went down to Willow Creek for a Black Lady weekend retreat with some chicks, and we was in the sun for hours trying to get that nice little melanated science happening, biology happening in the skin, get that little golden, you know, nice. I don't need bronzer.
No, getting sun kissed is the best. I mean, it really is.
Yes, sun kissed. All right, here goes the video, y'all. It might have a little commercial.
6 women were among the victims of a horrific shooting in Georgia.
All right.
They were grandmothers, mothers, daughters, sisters, and wives. They were killed because they were Asian. But anti-Asian violence is not new. It is part of our collective memory.
As the families in Georgia mourn and memorialize the lives of their loved ones, we remember the history of racism our community has faced. In 1875, the Page Act passes, banning Chinese women from entering the United States. It's the first federal law to limit immigration.
In 1882, the Chinese Exclusion Act passes, prohibiting Asian immigrants from becoming U.S. citizens. Its discriminatory practices survived for over 80 years. In 1885, 28 Chinese Americans are lynched and murdered in Rock Springs, Wyoming.
1930, across California, hundreds of Filipino American farm workers injured and scores killed by rioters. 1942, 120,000 Japanese Americans incarcerated in concentration camps by our own government.
1982, Vincent Chin beat to death by 2 men with a baseball bat right before his wedding. Mistaken for being Japanese, accused of stealing their jobs. 1989, 5 Vietnamese and Cambodian children killed, more than 30 wounded. Stockton, California.
In the wake of September 11, 2001, attacks against Muslims and South Asians surge. 2012, 6 Sikh Americans killed in a temple in Oak Creek, Wisconsin.
This past year, almost 4,000 incidents of anti-Asian violence, including murders of our elders simply walking in their own neighborhoods.
Memory is the antidote to death. Solidarity is the answer to silence.
As activist Valerie Kaur once asked, what if this is not the darkness of the tomb, but the darkness of the womb?
Today, we birth something new, knowing it's up to all of us to keep each other safe and shine a light together.
Tenía 7 años apenas 7 años. ¿Qué 7 años? No llegaba a 5 siquiera. De pronto unas voces en la calle me gritaron, ¡negra! 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 ¿Soy acaso negra? Me dije. ¡Sí! ¿Qué cosa es ser negra? ¡Negra! Yo no sabía la triste verdad que aquello escondía. ¡Negra! Y me sentí negra. ¡Negra! Como ellos decían. ¡Negra! Y retrocedí. ¡Negra! Como ellos querían. ¡Negra! Yo odié mis cabellos y mis labios gruesos y miré apenada mi carne tostada y retrocedí. ¡Negra! Y retrocedí. Negra, 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 negra. dejada. Seguía llevando a mi espalda mi pesada carga. Y cómo pesaba. Me alacé el cabello, me polvé la cara. Y entre mis entrañas siempre resonaba la misma palabra. ¡Negra! 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 Hasta que un día que retrocedía y que iba a caer. ¡Negra! 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 ¿Qué? ¿Y qué? ¡Negra! ¡Sí! ¡Negra! ¡Soy! ¡Negra! ¡Negra soy! ¡Negra! ¡Sí! ¡Negra soy! ¡Negra! ¡Negra soy! Yo hoy en adelante no quiero laciar mi cabello. ¡No quiero! Y voy a reírme de aquellos que por evitar, según ellos, que por evitarnos algún sinsabor llaman a los negros gente de color. ¿Y de qué color? ¡Negro! ¿Y qué lindo suena? ¡Negro! ¿Y qué ritmo tiene? ¡Negro, negro, 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 negro! Al fin comprendí. ¡Al fin! Ya no retrocedo. ¡Al fin! Y avanzo segura. ¡Al fin! Avanzo y espero. ¡Al fin! Y bendigo al cielo porque quito Dios que negro azabache fuese mi color y ya comprendí. ¡Al fin! Ya tengo la llave. Negro, 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 negro.
And for those of you who do not speak Spanish, I'm going to read you the English version of Victoria Santa Cruz's work. And she says, they yelled at me, black. I was just 7 years old, What? 7 years old and not even make it 5. Suddenly some voices on the street, they yelled at me, black, 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 black. Am I black? I told myself, yes. What is to be a black? Black. And I didn't know the sad truth, which might be behind black. And I felt black, black. As they said black, I stepped back, black, just as they wanted black. And I hated my hair and my fleshy lips. And I saw with sadness my brunette skin. I stepped back, black. I stepped back, black, 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 black. And the time went by, and I always so bitter. I continued to carry my heavy burden on my back and how it weighed. I smoothed my hair and I make up my face, but among my soul I heard always the same word, black, 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 until one day I stepped back. I stepped back and I was going to fall out. Black, 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 black. So what? So what? Black. Yes, black. I'm black. Black, black. I'm black. Black. Yes, black. I'm black. Black, black. I'm black. Henceforth, I don't want to smooth my hair. I don't want. And I'll laugh at those to prevent, they said, to prevent some conflict. They call to black people, people of color. And what a color, black. And how good it sounds, black. What a rhythm it has, black, 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 black. Finally, I realized, finally, I don't step back anymore. Finally, I walk safe. Finally, I walk in hope. Finally, and I blessed the heaven because God wanted that my skin was jet black color. And I understood, finally, that I have total control. I'm black.
I love that poem. Like, I freaking love it. I love how she pretty much explained her journey. I mean, she started as someone really scared and almost ashamed of her color. And, you know, with time and learning and self-love, she realized, like, yeah, like, I'm not going to let people dictate my happiness because of how I show up in the world. And now she's empowered. Now she's really proud of who she is as a Black woman. And honestly, like, shout out to the Latinx people, because it is a struggle trying to navigate both identities when you need to be Latinx, when you need to be Black. Like, what does that look like? But at the end of the day, her skin shows that, and she's proud of that. And I just love that poem. It's awesome.
When I tell you that this Afro-Latinx conversation couldn't be right on time, In the Heights is getting fire. I'm like, Lin-Manuel Miranda. Is it, or Lin-Manuel? Yeah, Lin-Manuel. I'm like, how do you exclude all of those dark-skinned Afro-Latinx people in the Bronx? I was like, I can't, like, there's so many. I'm like, wow. It was, yeah. I not my conversation to have, but I come from those parts, and I'm like, that's interesting. You're from New York, you know better. Right. But right. Yeah, there's a conversation around that happening, and again, intercontinental colorism. You know, in my family we're discussing, like, did the casting director not include that in the conversation? Was it a blind spot? Was that an idea taken away from? And then I was in the clubhouse, and there was an Afro-Latina woman who said that that when it was on Broadway, it was the same thing, that the movie version is not any different. So, and that was directed by what's his name, In the Heights. He did Crazy Rich Asians. I'm gonna pull it up right now. This is John M. Chu, and he has an interview talking about doing the dramaturgy and, like, kind of, research of what it means to be in the not just like Latinx community, but like New York culture is so different. Like, like New Yorkers, the Dominicans, the, like, everybody, like, there's so many of everybody in New York. So you gotta not just research one group of Latinx people, because, like, Dominican food is different from Puerto Rican food. You know what I mean? So it's like, anyway, that's a whole nother conversation. But In the Heights got me on fire.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it just felt like a missed opportunity. I mean, this was literally a chance to finally be like, okay, let's make this as representative as possible. And even when they did have an Afro-Latina, in the movie, she still didn't have that like there could have been so much more in terms of the kinkier hair, the darker skin. Like, this was just unfortunately a missed opportunity. I heard it was a good movie. I'm still gonna watch it just to support, but it is disappointing that once again they slipped up, and it's once again another, I'm so sorry. And that's why I keep saying actions do speak louder than words. Like, you can say sorry up and down and all around, but if you keep making the same mistakes, are you actually sorry? So, but yeah, it was a missed opportunity. But I love this poem because I think it's just, this is also an opportunity to start being empowered by the dark skin, not being scared of it, not trying to shy away from it. And for people who want to support it, also encouraging that the dark skin is good, it is beautiful, and it shouldn't be seen as dangerous or threatening.
Yeah. Soy negra.
Soy negra.
I think that's all I have to say on this conversation today. To honor beautiful Black skin, and to honor melanin and love it and share it, and make sure that all children, not just Black children, that we're all teaching our children to love dark skin.
Yep, I concur. And once again, for everyone that's been here with us, engaging with us and listening to us, we really do appreciate all the love. I mean, this has been a really rough year, and it's really nice that while things are slowly opening up, please remember that there are still people suffering. There are still people who were heavily impacted by this pandemic. So hopefully just showing up with a lot more love and empathy as the year starts to continue and as things start to slowly open up. Please stay safe and stay beautiful, y'all.
Thank you so much, Tina, for having this conversation with me. Thank you all for listening. Please share this video on Facebook once we close it out. Thanks. Peace.
Thanks, y'all. Peace.
Hi, my name is Sharon Blank, and I'm the president of Eureka NAACP. I'm sorry I'm not here with the community to celebrate today, our Juneteenth celebration. I'm in Reno at a funeral, and I wanted to make sure that I did provide a message to the community. So, Deanna, thank you for suggesting the recording. The Eureka NAACP has been here since 1952. And through the many decades and the many presidents that we've had, I want to once again thank A.V. Powell for holding this organization together and moving forward for many, 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 many years. And I'm really honored to be in this position now. We're very fortunate to have two wonderful vice presidents, Dr. Kintay Johnson as our first vice president, and Valletta Malofsky as our second vice president. I want to invite each of you to our meetings. We are meeting on Zoom still on the third Sunday of the month from 4:30 to 6. And you can contact us by going on our website, eurekaNAACP.org, and signing up to be on our email list. And you could also call us at our main number, which is 707-502-2546. And I can text you the link to make sure you get it for our next meeting, which is this Sunday. The Eureka NAACP is here to support Black people in Humboldt County. So we do that in many ways. I wrote some notes for myself. We have our education committee, which is most recently led by Dr. Johnson and Sean Dean. And we also have our legal redress team, which is actually the committee that's been together the longest of these two groups that I've mentioned, two committees. The legal redress team has been doing quite a bit of work throughout the years with the community. There is a complaint form on our website that is available to anyone. We soon will have it so that you can input your information and sign digitally. But right now, you would still need to print it out. But if you're ever finding yourself in a position where you're being treated unfairly, you feel that people are treating you with less respect because you are Black, please fill out a complaint form, and we will see if we can support you and how we can support you. Along with legal redress, we also support different parts of the community. We supported Alice Burney, the African American Center for Academic Excellence, CR through Dr. Johnson and Centro del Pueblo during this past year and a half of COVID. We've also been able to continue our book drives, which we've been doing for about 4 or 5 years now. Tina Sampay was actually the person that came up with the idea of us collecting books on African and Black history and books by African and Black authors and illustrators, collecting books and donating them to the K-12 schools, public schools, so that we are more present within the school systems here in Humboldt County. So we continue to do that. I'm very proud that this is our second year that we're partnering with Black Humboldt to provide grants to Black-owned businesses in the community. Also today, thanks to SEEK, we are able to distribute 24 art kits to Black children in the community. These kits are canvas bags with a book to show people how to draw simple animals and different things. There's markers, colored pencils, there's a notepad, there's regular drawing pencils, eraser, a pencil sharpener, and a notebook to draw in, a sketchbook to draw in. So I'm really grateful that we're able to provide those for the Black children in the community. We hope to actually start a regular art group for children with SEEK and some other people in our community. So please keep an eye out for that. We also are hoping to start either one big group or individual groups for Black elementary students to have a place to gather and find each other, and for families to be able to find each other. So please get on our email list. Again, you can sign up at eurekaNAACP.org, get on our email list, find out what we're doing, and if there are needs in the community that we're not addressing, please contact me and let me know. We can do a better job when we have more voices letting us know what's needed in the community. So again, the phone number is 707-502-2546. Enjoy the Juneteenth celebration, and I will be at the next one. Take care.
Thank you so much for being here again. Thank you for tuning in. This section is called Our Black World. And so we'll have various leaders, community members, teammates, organizers come to speak about the work that they're doing in the community to impact the Black community, for us, by us. That is Black Humboldt's motto, and we want to welcome anything that's for us, meaning our Black community, and by us, created by us. So stay tuned, and if you're here to represent an organization, please feel free to unmute and share your piece. Thank you for being here.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sean Dean. Let me make sure I have everything set up. All right. So my organization is called Learn to Achieve. We have a little slide that we want to present to everyone. So while we wait for that, I guess I can explain my history. So I have been moved in Humboldt County since about 2011. I'm a English degree graduate from Humboldt State University. I'm currently getting my teaching degree as well. At this point, so I'm a substitute teacher, and I organize a not-for-profit to help students figure out what they want to do for life after high school. I guess I'll let someone go after me, or can I show my presentation? I don't have the option to do screen sharing at this point. Yeah, so I'll wait until I can have share screen ability. Perfect, thank you. Awesome sauce. Okay, quick 10 minutes. Okay, so what I wanted to focus on briefly was the fact that as of right now, research shows that Black households headed by college graduates have less than 23,000. Have less wealth than the white household headed by households with high school dropouts. So in other words, students who are going to college, students who I've worked for years to help them figure out what to do after high school, on average, are making less money than students who I've been working with who are just dropping out of high school, white students who have been dropping out. So I came here today just briefly to share students and share an opportunity to fix this problem, which is to get out of debt free, or going to college. It's a necessity in its going future, but the majority than not, non-Black students are having to deal with not having as much debt as their African American and Black counterparts. So we've come up with just 3 quick plans that we during Juneteenth that we wanted to showcase to people, which was, first of all, starting your career exploration as soon as possible. At least sixth grade, give your African American child an opportunity to ride along if they're interested in becoming paramedics. And at this point, as someone who's worked as a college advisor, it is something that I have known that is percolating in my industry, that gone are the years that going to a 4-year university, like I'll admit, Humboldt State University, to figure yourself out. If you're interested in not making debt, that's not an option for Black students as much anymore. I think if we're speaking to the African American parents, I think we understand that our students have less options than their non-African American counterparts, and this is unfortunately one of them. Community college is a really great option for students who do not know what their intended majors are, and especially there are majors. There are grant programs that can help students figure out what they want to do while in college. These are student support programs like Talent Search, Upward Bound, and Gear Up in your local schools. We highly suggest for your students to join them. These programs on average have $300 per year per student to spend on helping your student figure out what they want to do. So we do highly suggest you take that advantage. So we are also offering a 12th grade guide to figure out what students want to do when they graduate high school. It starts in September when it's time for you to fill out your financial aid, but we highly suggest for you to start before that. If you will send in, we have an email link that we can provide for you at the end of this, where we can provide this link to you. But a lot of this information can be seen at HSU's Shape Your Future. For years I worked as a college advisor and I helped shape that platform. I highly suggest for you to use it. So what we do as Learn to Achieve, we help your students in after school programs to use this survey, to do these, to prepare these students for it, to figure out what they want to do. Do they want to stay local, or do they want to leave and go out of the area? Whichever way, we hope that we can help them with that. So we have our programs from Tuesdays and Thursdays for virtual after school program as of right now. And we're looking for students who are eligible for a program through IEPs and 504s. So if you have any questions for us, you can reach us. You can reach us at learntoachieve@gmail.com. And we also have a donation place if you all are interested in it. We can send links for that as well. Thank you for your time.
Hey everybody, this is James Braggs. I'm actually here in, let's see. Oh, I can't use my video. I'm actually here in downtown Arcata at the beautiful Juneteenth event put on by Black Humboldt, but there was a whole lot of music and a whole lot of noise in the background. So I was trying to find a quiet place to be able to talk. Hey, Sister D, can you hear me okay?
You sound beautiful.
Awesome. Now it's saying I can't, that video has been disabled. Was that intentional, or is it better for me to keep my video off?
Try now.
Let's see. Oh, there we are. There we are. Okay. I think I'll just do it right here, man. I'm across the street, y'all. It's a little shaded spot under this tree. Give me a second. There we go. There we go. So I'm gonna wear 2 hats for this quick little piece I want to share with y'all. I'm a part of, an active member, a part of BMEN, the Black Male Empowerment Network, and I'm also a community member, a part of Be Black. And so I'm going to do two quick. I'm going to try to keep it nice and short and sweet. But first off, before I begin, just want to give a big ups to Black Humboldt. You guys are amazing. You're brilliant. The spaces you guys put on are out of sight. It's necessary and critical work that you're doing for us here. It's much appreciated. And more importantly, you do it beautifully. So thank you so much for all that you do. It is, words can't express how much I appreciate it and the positive impact that it's having on our community here in Humboldt. So thank you very much. I'm going to start with BMEN real fast, just because it's a project that I've been, or a community space, I guess we could say, that I've been a part of since I came back to Humboldt 6 years ago. That space was started by Steve Bell, and the idea was that it was important to provide a space for individuals who self-identify as Black men to have a space to connect and build with one another, right? In this time and age, we all know that it's hard to live and exist in a society that's so anti-Black, and that violence can take its toll, especially on all of us, and on Black men in particular ways. And so we felt it was necessary for us to create a space for us to come together, to build and to care for one another, right? So this space is just that, man. It's about linking up and building positive and healthy relationships amongst each other. So I'm proud to be a part of that space. If you guys are connected with individuals who self-identify as Black men, let them know they're welcome. We meet on Zoom every Saturday at 11 o'clock. And it's a space where we connect and build and talk, about a range of issues. And we're also trying to figure out how we can show up in more focused and targeted ways for us here in this community too. We're at a really interesting place in our development right now. So for those that are interested, if you're from here and you want to get linked up, find me, right? Or find there are a lot of brothers that are part of the community that are connected with us. So either find me, you can hit up Kevin Ross, or just about any brother for the most part here. But look me up, okay? You might start seeing some stuff floating around. I'm not going to give out too much information, but BMEN is something that you got to do a little work to find. So brothers, find us, and sisters, help the brothers find us. Okay, so that's BMEN. The second project I want to just give a quick little piece on is the Be Black, which stands for Building Black Community. And we aren't really an organization. We're just a collection of brothers and sisters here that have a commitment to contributing to community building efforts, right? And so with a particular focus on community safety, right? In other words, we believe that our safety and our wellness is a collective question, right? In other words, that in order for us to build a place that's safer and more whole and whole for us, is that the better policing can't do that, better politicians can't do that, right? That the more government programs can do that. Like ultimately, we got to come together and do that. So Be Black is we came together with a particular kind of focus on engaging this question around community safety, right? We started at the beginning of the pandemic, and with a kind of really kind of honing in on this question of law enforcement. How can we, and trying to move just beyond the question of like addressing and holding law enforcement accountable, which is important and necessary, right? But also, how can we organize ourselves as a community to make our community safer, right? One of the things that does make ourselves safer are through some of the projects that, or all the projects really, that I know Black Humboldt does. Anytime we can come together and celebrate and build meaningful relationships with each other is critical, right? That's necessary. And we also need spaces for us to think strategically about how we can hold folks accountable, and how we can move in targeted ways to address issues of community safety and wellness. So Be Black has a particular emphasis, focus on coming together around our governance, right? So holding local public institutions accountable, right? And figuring out how we can organize ourselves to better meet our needs autonomously, right? So self-determination. There was a group that said, you know what? Our community safety is also tied to our parenting. Matter of fact, Sister D was a part of a real key conversation that led us down this path of thinking about the decolonization of our parenting. Right? So, because, you know, and how can we think critically about our parenting and change the way that we are interacting with our youth as a part of the way that we make ourselves more healthy and more whole. So that's another project that we got going on, is kind of focused in and around the decolonization of parenting, and what that looks like in an applied sense, right? On the playground, right? At home when we're trying to get the kids to do the chores, right? Through education and mentorship, right? Third, we got a project that's called We Search, WE Search, and it's essentially an effort to centered around generating grassroots research about us for us. The idea being that like our health, our safety, our security is in self-knowledge, right? Knowledge of ourselves, right? Not just reading about us, but also a knowledge that's rooted in our relationships with each other, like learning about each other and our community here. And so we have a couple projects cooking that are centered around this broader question or effort of collective research, right? Us organizing ourselves to generate research about ourselves, our issues, right? Concerns, wants, and needs, and applying that analysis to our efforts, right? To help inform those efforts, right? And lastly, man, we're always about anything that helps us all come together, right? At the end of the day, we have to figure out, how do we come together? Once we come together, how do we stay together, right? And while we're staying together, right, it's important for us to figure out how we work together, right? We can't work together if we can't stay together, right? And so, we're down to support any and all efforts that move us in that direction, right? That help us come together in healthy ways, and stay together in healthy and wholesome, productive ways, which is one of the reasons why we're super excited about and just overwhelmed with joy with Black Humboldt and NAACP and the work that's happening in the community right now. So that's it. I think I said I was going to try to make it quick. I don't think that was all that quick, but I'll leave it there. How was that, D? Was that okay? Did I do all right?
You did beautiful. Black and beautiful, baby.
All right. So once again, sister, thank you so much for the space. And if Brother Herman jumps on and wants to say something, you know, tell him. Hopefully, I didn't step on his toes, but I figured I'd go ahead and make it happen. So, thank you once again for putting the space on.
Thank you for being here, Brother James.